You could save money by organising your own wedding. However, Tiffany and Tim are one of those really relaxed, laid-back couples, and they wanted to organise a wedding that reflected this. So they chose Tiffany's parents' farm to hold the wedding reception. Choosing to do a fully DIY wedding means that you have full control over every element of your wedding. It can also save you money on venue hire and bar bills, but it does come at a cost that I think most couples don't fully appreciate. There's a theme between all the weddings I've photographed where the couple choose to have a DIY wedding, and that is the sheer amount of work and effort that goes into making that day happen. Build the bar, build the dance floor, organise the music, the food, the catering, the timing, clear out the venue, dress the venue. It's all on you. Clearly, having a DIY wedding has massive advantages. You have a totally unique experience and you retain full control. For some people, the idea of just finding their dream venue and letting the experts deal with the stress is much more appealing than having to spend weeks building their own wedding. For some couples, bringing their family and friends together to build that wedding day is just as important as the wedding day itself. I don't think there's a perfect solution. I think it's a very personal choice. But I do know that every single couple that choose to do a DIY wedding or elements of a DIY in their wedding greatly underestimate the time and effort that is needed in planning such a big event. That's not to say that you shouldn't do it, because the rewards are huge, and from a photographer's perspective, photographing in a really unique, laid-back, relaxed and creative atmosphere is obviously very appealing. So I started my day with the girls and the preparations, and as I walked up the staircase for the first time in the morning, I saw this small window here on the right with the hairdresser working and the doorway on the left, and in a split second I knew that this is the shot that I was going to get. When I'm photographing the dress or the flowers in the morning, I like to bring in some personal elements if possible, so I've hung Tiff's necklace on this old typewriter that she had and placed her bouquet on the piano. Now outside the house was parked Tiff's dad's own classic car. I love the story behind this because Tiff's dad had owned this car for quite some time, but the wedding had given him just a bit of an incentive to finish off the last parts of the restoration in time to take Tiff to the church. Such a nice personal touch and really ties into this DIY theme of the day. Tiff's dog was hanging around with us all morning during the prep, and I really wanted to include her in the photographs, and after lots of experimentation, this is the shot I settled on, with the hairdresser on the left tending to Tiff, and then Tiff in turn tending to the dog on the right, just making this lovely diagonal composition and telling lots of different stories in one frame. I really loved this portrait of the flower girl, mainly because of the blue in her headpiece, picking out the blue in her eyes, this beautiful soft light just coming in from the left. One of the tough things about being a wedding photographer is you have to be an expert in so many different types of photography, portraiture just being one of those. So it's really nice to be able to compose beautiful portraits as well as all the other things you have to photograph on a wedding day. At this moment I just chanced across Tiff's mum, seeing her for the first time. It was such a nice moment, and we were in such a small space, so I had to zoom right out to try and get an intimate feel, but without getting too close. So luckily for Tiff and Tim, this was a super sunny day. Not so great for me, especially for photographing flowers. Luckily for Tiff and Tim, it was a super sunny day. Not so lucky for me. I much prefer to photograph details of the dress and the flowers in shade. It just picks out the colours and the textures much more. So I asked Tiff just to wait in the shade of the house. All the girls just hanging around waiting for the car. The first scene I see when arriving at the church is Tim just waiting in the doorway in this perfect composition with the perfect light. I didn't need to interrupt the scene whatsoever, just grab the shot and I've got a fantastic portrait of Tim there. It's such a great feeling when you capture these cheeky little moments in a wedding, and such a different technique to composing a nicely framed portrait. These moments just happen and you just have to keep your eyes open all day waiting for these little gems to happen. So the girls have arrived, the flower girl not so much. It's quite a classic shot to get if you sat in the car with the door open as you arrive at the church or your hotel venue. But on a sunny day it works so well because the roof of the car cuts out the harshest of the light and forces the light to come in through the door as a reflected soft light. And it's kind of the most flattering portrait of the day because your makeup's just been done, your hair's still perfect, and you've got the most flattering light. So I love getting this shot. So during the church service I kept noticing there were swallows just darting in through the actual doorway of the church, and I felt like I really wanted to capture this, just to remind Tiff and Tim of this little detail that they might not necessarily remember. The problem was these things move so fast, and the only way to capture them was to put my camera on machine gun mode, so it takes lots of pictures really quickly, which is really noisy in a church. So I knew I had one chance to get this picture. So I pre-focused where the birds had been flying, set my camera to machine gun mode, and just waited for the next one to fly in, and luckily got a really, really nice shot. This church is in a tiny little hamlet called Linton, and about 30 seconds out of the church you're by the river with the stepping stones here. The sun gods were on my side that day as a few light clouds just headed over as we got down to the river, which made for just fantastic pictures. And I was able to spend just a few minutes with Tiff and Tim as their guests headed over back to the farm. So back on the farm you can start to see the kind of venue this is. What really blew me away is that all these cobbles that you see and all this paving and all the buildings were all cleaned and restored for the wedding. This was a working farm that was absolutely transformed, so you can imagine the time and the effort that went into making this venue what it was. So they used the newly built cattle barn for the reception venue, and actually with quite minimal dressing, just a few drapes from the ceiling and wrapping some of the posts up, kept that real rustic edge and added their own little touches, things that you can't always do in a hired hotel venue. This is definitely one of my favourite family portraits that I've taken at a wedding. And here you just get a better shot of the barn. The amazing food. Because the sun was so bright and we had no cover at the reception venue, my best option was to wait until the sun started setting. This was actually really nice because it enabled Tiff and Tim just to have a walk to the top of the farm, spend a bit of time enjoying the scenery and the sunset, and I was able to get the shots that I needed. And of course, because it's their own barn and their own bar, the dancing and drinking went on into the night, as you can see. Thank you for watching this wedding walkthrough. So if you're planning your own DIY wedding or you're not, and you want some help and advice with the whole process, feel free to message me or contact me on Instagram, which is mark_tattersall, and I'll hopefully see you next time.